Hi everyone, it's been a while actually. So yeah, today I will demonstrate how to combine this Copilot Retrieval API with Foundry and Agent SDK. First of all, a quick word about myself. Franck Cornu, I'm a Microsoft 365 solution architect at PwC Canada, based in Montreal. And also Microsoft 365 development MVP, contributed to a bunch of open source projects as well. And yeah, so I don't have any slides for today, but I have an architecture diagram to show you basically how the solution is working and the solution I will demonstrate. So basically, what I'm going to show you is how to use like the Copilot Retrieval API with combined with like a team bot using the Microsoft 365 Agent SDK and an agent inside AI Foundry. So basically, how it works is the users are consuming the application directly in Teams or Copilot channels through the bot service. So we create a new bot there, a new Teams application. And in that bot service, we configure OAuth 2 connection to handle authentication. So we define some authentication setting through an Entra ID app. I will show you that in a minute. But basically, we configure that authentication. So we are able to get the identity from the users, get an access token. This access token is sent to the bot logic application there. And we use that token to call the API, the retrieval API, through a tool defined in an Azure AI Foundry agent. So we define an agent there with a specific LLM. We don't really care about that part for now, but we define a tool at runtime, and this tool is selected by the agent, and we combine the tool output, actually the tool selection, with the token to call that API and retrieve the data from Microsoft 365. So first, for those who don't know the Copilot Retrieval API, so it's the new API released by Microsoft that basically allows to consume data from the semantic index within 365. So it's I would say a paid API because it requires like Copilot license for the users to consume it. But the good thing about this API is so you can consume that data from SharePoint, but also from Copilot connectors. So let's say you have line of business data you want to integrate with your agents. You are not forced to use a custom storage solution. To do that, you could basically ingest the data into the Graph API and use Copilot connector to consume that data. And then the Copilot retrieval to ground that data and pass the data to your agent. So it simplifies a lot the grounding scenarios for agents, but again, it requires Copilot license to work. So let's jump to the setup of that. So first of all, I will show you how to set up the authentication on the bot itself. So we need to define first an Entra ID application. This application will be used to retrieve the data from the Copilot API, the Graph API. So for that, we define some API permissions. So there I have sites read.all and external items read.all. This one will be used to get content from SharePoint, for instance, and to consume data from Copilot connector, you will need the external item.read.all. Another things you have to do on that application, because I'm using also the application to log in users, you have to put that redirect URL. The bot framework one, this URL will be used to get the token basically sent by the bot service. So that's another setting to do. And on the manifest side, you also need to set that value, the request access token version to 2. Then, once you have your application set, you go to the to Visual Studio Code. You create a new bot application using the Microsoft Agents SDK. So for that, you can just create a sample, a new app, actually, a custom engine agent, a basic one that will work as well. And what you need to do from here to support first the authentication, you will need to update the manifest first. So the manifest of that application, the Teams application, which is there. You will need to add those two domains to get the authentication work. So tokenbotframework.com and loginmicrosoft.online.com. And then configure some variables in environment variables within your code. So the first time you will run that actually your solution from Visual Studio Code using the this debug configuration, like debug in Teams, it will create a new bot registration, but within the bot framework developer portal, not in Azure. So it will basically create a bot there. The issue there, which is not really an issue, is the bot created there, they don't support the authentication configuration. You need to migrate them in Azure to do that. So this is already done there, but basically when you click on your bot there, you will see like a migrate button, migrate to Azure. So you have to do this first, and it will create a new instance of bot service inside your Azure tenant. And from there, you will be able to configure authentication setting, like OAuth setting. So there, what I did is I just created a new OAuth connections and provided a couple of settings there. So the name, which is quite important, we'll see why. The client ID, which is the client ID of the previous application I showed, the tenant ID as well, and the permission I request for that connection. So in my case, I will show you basically how to consume data from SharePoint. So I'm just using sites read.all, but you can put, for instance, if you consume, like I said, Copilot connectors, you need to put the external item.read.all there. So you save the connection. You can even test to see if it works. So normally you get a token there. Perfect. And those settings, you will need to use them inside your code. So I will show you how it works, the authentication on the code side. So I just created a new agent class using the SDK. I'll just get rid of that. Perfect. And then on the initialization of my application, I just set the authorization properly there. As you can see, there is no client ID or client secret whatsoever there. It's based on environment variables there. So first of all, I define like a graph property, which is basically the name I will use in my environment variable there. So in the application variable, you need to define that name for your variable. So it's based on the convention, and it's not really well explained in the Microsoft documentation, unfortunately, but basically the name you put in your authorization, authorization there, the graphing, it has to be there as a prefix, then underscore connection name. The connection name should be there, or should always be there. So you have to define this. And also for the agent to communicate with your bot, you need to set up like client ID, client secret. These values will be set automatically by the debugging process when you launch in for the first time. But one thing you have to know about that is the SDK itself will assume like if you have a client ID and a client secret, it will use that to connect to your bot. If you don't include the client secret in your variable, it will assume you use managed identity to connect to your bot. This has an impact because, of course, running your code locally, you can't really use a managed identity there. So it's more like if you deploy on Azure, usually you don't rely on a client secret and you rely on a managed identity. When I talk about managed identity there, it's really this part. So you have the bot type there. When you create through the SDK and from Visual Studio Code, it will just create a bot like single tenant. But when you create a bot directly in Azure, like by yourself, you will see you will have a managed identity tied to your bot. And it means you have to configure your environment variable accordingly. That's basically what it means. So once you have that, normally you're good to go to launch your bot, and then you can start to catch the messages, like the activities from the bot. To enable the authentication of all the messages, you basically need like the on activity and message. You can pass like a authentication handler there, which is basically the name of my handler I define in the constructor. So what it means is when I now talk to my bots there, so I will ask a question. Actually, it can be anything, whatever. The first time I will log. Normally I will be, yeah. So the SDK will automatically send a signing card for my users to sign in. So I don't have any to handle anything of that. It's like automatic. And then once signed, I will receive like a token. So I can use the SDK to directly get the token from my user, and I can use that token for anything. Actually, for to call a graph API according to the scopes I defined in the bot configuration, actually. So now we configure the authentication. We will need to configure the agent inside AI Foundry. So switch to Foundry. So in Foundry, so I'm using a new Foundry experience. You may have noticed there is like two experiences, like the classic one and the new one. So I'll just go to the classic one just to explain a little bit, because it has a small impact on the solution. When you define agents there, so we use the agent service of AI Foundry, right? So it's a dedicated service inside Foundry. And in the classic experience, when you define your agent, so and the name, the model you want to use, and also the tools. In the classic one, you could define like a custom function. There was the option directly there, and you could see the function there. In the new portal, this option is not available anymore in the UI, but it does not mean you can't use it, and that's what I'm going to show you there. So I just created like a basic agent in Foundry, setting some instruction, like really basic one, does not really matter at this point. I use GPT-4.1, but honestly, it does not matter. You can select any model that supports function calling, actually, tools calling. It will do the job as well. So I'm just doing that. No tools define whatever. So because anyway, the option is not there anymore in the new portals. What I will do is in my code, so directly there, I will use the Foundry SDK to interact with my agent within Foundry. To do that, just to be sure, for the new portal, you will need to use, for now, the beta packages for AI Agent and AI Project. Why is because the way you consume agents between the classic Foundry and the new one, they're not using the same APIs. So in the previous version, that was the OpenAI Assistance API, and the new Foundry, it uses the Responses API. It's a little bit different. And to basically use the SDK with the latest version, you would need for now to use the better version of the packages. So going back to my agent there. Yeah. So what I do here is at the start of my application, I just register dynamically in my agent a new tool, right? So I say basically I connect to my agent, and by the way, to connect to your agent, so in my case, I'm using an SPN there. And this SPN has to, it needs to have this permission to connect to your Foundry project, actually. So just to be sure to have those permission, airbag permission to set at resource level. So I'm connecting to the Foundry project and defining a tool. So a tool is basically a way to tell the LLM, okay, if a user asks a query, or let's say in my case, retrieve document from SharePoint, you should execute that tool. But actually, the LLM won't execute anything. It will just select that document, that function for me. And in there, I put a description and information about the parameters I want to pass to that function. So the information you put there is quite important because it tells the model how to use your function. So the more precise you are there, the more accurate the tool selection will be. So in my case, it's pretty simple. Like I just want to retrieve documents within SharePoint, and I just have one parameter, which is the user query. I just say in that case, you could optimize the query just as keywords to be more simple, basically. But I register that function to my agent. So when my server starts, basically, I just register that. So it's a one-time configuration. You don't need to do that at every message. So it means like now, if I go back to my Foundry, so it's already done, so I will show you. And if I switch to the configuration, I inspect the configuration, I can see, oh, my tool is already defined there. So it means you could also create that function at creation time, actually. In my case, I'll do it at runtime, but that's for the purpose of the demo. So then I am a function defined, and I need to basically handle that that call. So I will just show you how it works basically. So we'll put a breakpoint here and ask something about this. So I go to Teams there, and I will just put a query that will trigger my function. So this is really for the purpose of the example, but just to make sure my function will be triggered. So as you can see, I'm starting by creating a conversation with OpenAI, Responses API, and then create a response. So I pass the agent name actually as parameter and the text from there. Because I'm already logged into Teams, it means I can grab the access token from the user there, right? And use that access token, for instance, to call a Microsoft Graph API. Like I said before, the model itself won't execute anything. It will just say, okay, I have a function called matched basically the user query, and now it's up to you to execute that function. So it means you need to parse the arguments sent by the LLM. So in my case, that was the query, right? And actually do whatever with that information. So in my case, I just use the Copilot Retrieval API based on the query and the access token. Actually, I will just go to the graph here. So normally yeah, absolutely. So I get there and I call the API with the access token of the user with the query I grabbed from actually sent by my LLM. So in that case, a very actually important point, with the retrieval API, and this is not documented, unfortunately, you will need to use that HTTP error because sometimes you will get no results, actually. And it's because you need to set that specific error. So like I said, it's not documented, but keep that in mind. So basically now I have a user token. I'm able to call that API on behalf of that users and get results. So so it's like so it's retrieving my content, my documents from SharePoint, and what I need to do next is basically inject my call output. So basically the data retrieved from my API, I just add it as a new function call output in my model and call the Responses API again. References the previous response ID, but this time with the data context retrieved from that API. And now normally I will be able to get an answer based on my live data within 365. So if I inspect the citations, yeah, that's a link coming directly from my SharePoint. So the last thing also I want to talk about. So as you can see, you can have like citations there. And the way it works, actually, a technique I use to get the citations is just to parse the markdown links sent by the agent as the answer. So with the SDK, the Microsoft 365 Agent SDK, you have a built-in way to manage citations. And the experience will be a little bit different between Teams channels and Copilot channels. But basically, the concept is just to extract the markdown links from the agent. And for that, it's quite important to set in the instructions to explicitly, to explicitly say, okay, you must include all the references within your answer with markdown syntax. So it's a way to extract citations. And like I said, it works a little bit different from Copilot experiences and Teams. So this is the team experience, like with the the numbers there. But if I ask the same question in Copilot there, and I select my agent there, Same question. It will work. I will probably need to, remove some breakpoints. Can take some time. Yeah, perfect. So as you can see, it will list the sources at the bottom, and clicking on that, you will have all your citation on the right. By default, it does not come with citation, so we need to handle that part yourself. So that's why it's quite important. Yeah, and like I said, with this technique, you can use any data from SharePoint or any Copilot connector, actually. So it enables a lot of cool scenarios on that side. That was it for me.